Hey everyone, my name is Nathan Stouffer, and Mike and I did a project this summer called Truncating Blockchains with Tangly Statistics. So let's get right into it. Blockchains are these systems where their security depends on how decentralized mining power is. This decentralization is limited by the cost of joining a blockchain. The technical reason for this is that blockchains grow without bound, and new miners must process every single block to join the chain. Bitcoin has over 280 gigabytes of data, which can take over a week to download and process. This makes it rather difficult to join a blockchain if you're a resource-constrained node. We should also note that a chain can be summarized, but the summary can't be trusted because it could have been provided by an adversary. So, what we decided to do is devise an off-chain protocol that verifies a blockchain summary. Recent miners then vote for a summary, and bootstrapping nodes can determine whether they want to trust the election based on a statistical test. You might ask, well, why does any of this matter? And the answer would be that a trusted summary reduces bootstrapping costs, which makes decentralization more achievable. Greater decentralization results in better blockchain security. Let's discuss some background information. So we view a blockchain as a finite state machine where blocks are transitions between states. So we would start in state 0, and block 1 moves us into state 1, and then block 2 moves us into state 2, and so on until we reach the nth block that gives us the nth state. For a more concrete example, look at cryptocurrencies, where state is realized as a balance sheet and the transactions in each block act on the balance sheet to produce a new state. From there, a vote can be generated by computing the hash of the state that someone supports. One of the ideas that uses this is called CoinPrune. In CoinPrune, each block in the main chain may record a single vote. If there are sufficiently many votes, a bootstrapping node can then just trust the majority. There's two problems with this. First, CoinPrune takes too long to reach consensus because votes are generated at the same rate as blocks. In Bitcoin, a block takes on average 10 minutes to be generated, so you might have to wait a week before you can trust a state. The second reason is that CoinPrune gives powerful miners an unfair advantage in terms of voting power because they only count votes in the main chain. For our solution, we took a lot of inspiration from CoinPrune, except that we decided to store votes in a distributed hash table instead of the main blockchain. Unfortunately, this does open up a new venue for an attacker because they can gain control of the hash table and begin deleting votes. So, that motivates the following protocol to prevent the attacker from doing this. To qualify as a voter, one must have mined a recent block. A voter then constructs their vote as in Figure 2. The two most important parts are the hash of the state, which is the actual opinion of the voter, as well as the digital signature, which prevents anyone from forging or changing the vote. The voter then waits until their round begins, and at that time they submit their vote to a deterministically chosen set of data structures called tangles. An example of a tangle is shown in Figure 3. A tangle is just a directed graph where nodes are added by choosing parents and drawing edges from the parents to the new node. The two most recent nodes should be chosen as parents. For example, in Figure 3, we added node 6 by selecting nodes 4 and 5 as parents and drawing edges from each of them that terminate at node 6. Each tangle also has a manager, and when the vote is submitted, the manager chooses appropriate parents and attaches the vote to its tangle. Then each vote has a bunch of validity requirements, but the two most important ones are that a vote exists in all the tangles that it's supposed to, and that all of its ancestors are valid. This comes in really handy during our decision protocol, where we first collect and union all of the tangles, and then we mark votes as invalid. Let's look at Figure 4 for an example. So say vote 5 was supposed to be in both tangles, but that it was deleted from the first one. That means when we union them together, we have to mark vote 5 as invalid in the union because it wasn't in all of the tangles it was supposed to be. Additionally, we have to mark all of its children as invalid, that is votes 6, 7, 8, and 9. So by deleting vote 5, the attacker caused a chain reaction that probably deleted one of its own votes as well. From there, we can determine the majority among valid votes and accept or reject the winning state based on the chi-squared goodness of fit test. The chi-squared test is a way to measure the probability that a sample comes from an expected distribution. In our case, we expect 90% of votes to agree, and we construct our sample from valid votes. Figure 5 shows a heat map of the probability that a sample comes from our expected distribution based on how many votes were cast and how powerful the adversary is. We assume the adversary is dishonest and uses all of their votes. If we land in a blue region, we say that the chi-squared test rejects the election and we don't accept the winner. However, if we land in a red region, we say the chi-squared test tells us that it's plausible enough that 90% of actual votes agree. There are two cases here. Either we land in the bottom right, in which case we confirm an honest state, right? That's good stuff. However, we could also land in the staircase on the left. This is when the adversary is powerful enough and there are too few honest votes to compensate for this. So we would actually confirm a dishonest state, right? That's not great. It's probably not something we want to do. So to solve this, we only trust a chi-squared test with more than 600 valid votes. Then we're resilient to attackers with less than 50% of the mining power. We just showed that an attacker has a low probability of straight up winning an election. But since the chi-squared test is based on proportions, it's natural to wonder whether an attacker can delete votes to affect those proportions and possibly swing the election. To respond to this, we model a strong but stupid attacker who controls all but one manager, and we wonder if that attacker can delete votes to swing the election. In Figure 6, each line represents a distinct hashing power for our attacker, and each point on each line denotes how much the attacker gained by deleting the kth vote. Experimentally, we found that A can only affect the election by deleting one of the first 400 votes. Since we already require more than 600 votes for a valid chi-square test, we find that the attacker can't really do anything, which is great, right? We want our system to be resilient against attackers taking over our hash table. So to wrap it up, let's make some conclusions. First, in our protocol, vote timing does not depend on new blocks being generated, which decreases the lower bound for consensus time. Second, if we require at least 600 valid votes, an attacker has a negligible probability of satisfying the chi-square test and confirming an adversarial state. Furthermore, all we need is a single honest manager, and then an attacker cannot significantly change the chi-square test by deleting votes. So, all this really comes down to is that we've devised a protocol that might increase miner participation because it's easier to join a blockchain. If that happens, this results in better blockchain security. Big thanks to Mike for working with me this summer, and we'd both like to thank Clem and Brendan for organizing the REU, as well as NSF for funding the program. Thanks for listening. See ya.